For over a decade, the Marvel Cinematic Universe sold the world a beautiful, compelling fantasy, heroes uniting against impossible odds. The magic felt real, the camaraderie infectious. But behind the perfectly choreographed battles and witty one-liners, a different story was unfolding. It was a story of control, paranoia, and psychological manipulation, all built upon a foundation of extreme secrecy. While fans believed this secrecy was designed to protect them from spoilers, the actors on the inside began to realize it served a much darker purpose: to keep them disoriented, fragmented, and powerless. This wasn't about preserving narrative surprises. It was about building a fortress of lies where the talent was treated not as collaborators, but as liabilities. The most famous victim, or perhaps the most vocal symptom of this paranoid system, was Tom Holland, cast as the effervescent and youthful Spider-Man. His public persona was quickly molded into that of the lovable klutz who couldn't keep a secret. The anecdotes were played for laughs in countless interviews. Tom accidentally spoiling a plot point, Tom being paired with a more tight-lipped coaster on press tours. But what was framed as a running gag was, in reality, a deeply unsettling reflection of the studio's methods. Holland himself revealed the startling extent of this control. He wasn't just given talking points for interviews. He was systematically denied access to the very story he was supposed to be telling. "I'm not allowed to read the scripts because I'm so bad at keeping secrets," he would say, a line that sounded like a joke but was a literal condition of his employment. Imagine being the lead actor in one of the world's biggest film franchises and not knowing the fate of your own character. Holland has described filming scenes without knowing who he was fighting, what the context was, or what would happen next. This strategy, known as compartmentalization, is common in intelligence agencies, not typically on film sets. Scripts were heavily redacted, with key lines and character names simply left blank. "I'd be doing a scene with someone," Holland explained, "and when it would come to say the character's name of the person I was working with, it would just be blank." This goes far beyond preventing leaks. It's a form of psychological containment, designed to keep actors from seeing the bigger picture, preventing them from forming a cohesive understanding of their own performance. The pressure became so immense that Holland's infamous spoiler drops started to look less like carelessness and more like a dam breaking. When he blurted out that Iron Man dies, it wasn't a triumphant gotcha moment. It was the sound of a young actor buckling under the physically unbearable weight of holding secrets he was never meant to fully comprehend. Holland wasn't alone. The entire cast of Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame was subjected to this disinformation campaign. Actors were given multiple fake scripts with alternate endings and phantom scenes to throw them off the scent of the real plot. Chris Evans, who played Captain America, joked that these were insurance policies against spoilers. But that insurance came at a steep price. The strategy fostered an environment of confusion and anxiety. Actors couldn't properly prepare for their roles because they never knew what was real. Imagine trying to portray a character's emotional arc when you don't know if they live or die, if their loved ones are alive, or even what timeline you're currently in. This isn't storytelling, it's manipulation. Even the famously Mark Ruffalo, who played Bruce Banner the Hulk, became a poster child for Marvel's secrecy obsession. His accidents, like live streaming the first 20 minutes of Thor Ragnarok from the premiere, or flat out stating "everybody dies" before Infinity War was released, were treated as hilarious blunders. But they highlighted something far more critical: the sheer exhaustion and confusion that permeated the cast. The layers of secrecy were so dense and overwhelming that even the veteran stars couldn't keep the narrative straight. However, Marvel's reaction was perhaps the most telling part of all. Ruffalo wasn't punished or fired. Instead, the studio leaned into the joke, with the Russo brothers firing him on Twitter. Why? Because firing him would be an admission that a genuine secret had escaped their fortress. It was better to play it off as a harmless guffaw strategy of public relations containment. By laughing along, Marvel retained control of the narrative, framing Ruffalo as a lovable buffoon rather than a crack in their armor. Ultimately, the web of fake scripts, redacted lines, and strategic misdirection created a system where actors were systematically detached from their own work. They were cogs in a machine, fed only the information they needed to perform a specific task, never trusted with the full blueprint. The on-screen image of the Avengers as a tight-knit family was a masterfully crafted illusion. Behind the scenes, they were being kept apart, isolated by information silos, and bound by non-disclosure agreements longer than the movie scripts themselves. Disney and Marvel weren't just hiding spoilers from the audience. They were strategically disorienting their own cast, ensuring that no single actor held enough information to become a threat. The prison of secrets wasn't for us, it was for them. While Marvel's fortress of secrecy controlled the minds of its actors, its financial practices aimed to control their careers and their wallets. The studio, under Disney's corporate umbrella, cultivated an image of being a dream factory, a place where actors became global superstars and cinematic legends. But beneath this veneer of opportunity lay a ruthless and calculating business strategy that often treated its talent as expendable assets rather than creative partners. A pattern of contentious contract negotiations, dramatic pay disputes, and outright exploitation has marked the MCU's history, revealing a company that demands everything from its stars while fighting tooth and nail to give as little as possible. In return, the price of becoming a hero, it turns out, was often your own financial worth and professional dignity. No case illustrates this more poignantly than the recent claims made by Jeremy Renner. In a May 2025 interview, the actor who has portrayed Hawkeye for over a decade made a jaw-dropping allegation. After surviving a near-fatal snowplow accident in 2023 and enduring a grueling physical rehabilitation, he was approached for a potential second season of the Disney Plus series Hawkeye. The offer, he claimed, was for half of his previous salary. Despite the expectation of putting in twice the amount of work over an 8-month commitment, the timing and nature of the offer felt like a profound insult. Renner publicly questioned the studio's logic, asking, "Why did you think I'm only half the Jeremy? 'Cause I got ran over." He felt the offer was directly tied to perceptions of his physical capabilities, post-recovery. Renner, careful to distinguish between Marvel's creative team and Disney's penny pinchers, ultimately rejected the offer, colorfully telling them to go fly a kite. This incident wasn't just a lowball offer. It was a reflection of a corporate mindset that seemingly saw a founding Avenger who had just faced death as a depreciated asset. Renner's experience, while shocking, is not an isolated incident. It follows a long and well-established pattern of financial disputes at Marvel. Perhaps the most infamous early example was the departure of Terrence Howard. For the original Iron Man in 2008, Howard, then a bigger star, was paid more than Robert Downey Jr., but after the film's mega-success, the tables turned. For the sequel, the studio reportedly slashed Howard's compensation to reallocate funds to Downey Jr.'s now much larger salary. Howard refused the reduced offer and was unceremoniously replaced by Don Cheadle. This set a crucial precedent. No matter your contribution, you are replaceable if you stand in the way of the bottom line. This precedent reached its dramatic peak with Scarlett Johansson's landmark lawsuit against Disney in 2021. For years, she had been a cornerstone of the MCU as Black Widow. When her long-awaited solo film was released simultaneously in theaters and on Disney Plus Premier Access, it severely undercut the box office profits to which her salary was contractually tied. Johansson sued for breach of contract, seeking a reported $80 million in damages. Disney's response was not one of negotiation but of aggression. In a stunning public statement, the company accused her of callous disregard for the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, attempting to shame her for demanding the money she was contractually owed. They weaponized the global crisis against their own star. The move backfired spectacularly, and the dispute was eventually settled for a sum reportedly exceeding $40 million. Johansson's victory was more than just a paycheck. It was a turning point that exposed the studio's deceptive practices and emboldened other talents to fight for their worth. Beyond these headline-grabbing cases, there are numerous other instances of financial friction. Acclaimed actors like Hugo Weaving, who played the Red Skull, did not return for future appearances, with financial disagreements widely cited as the reason. John Malkovich revealed he had turned down Marvel roles for years because the pay was insufficient for the grueling, months-long commitment of green screen work. This pattern extends to the franchise's overall compensation structure, which is rife with disparities. While Robert Downey Jr. eventually leveraged his central role to earn a reported $75 million for Avengers: Endgame, other vital actors received fractions of that. Chadwick Boseman, the star of the cultural phenomenon Black Panther film that grossed over $1.3 billion, reportedly earned $2 million for his role. This raises serious questions about equity and how the studio values its talent, particularly when it comes to non-white leads who are foundational to the franchise's evolving identity. As the MCU entered its later phases, reports emerged that Marvel was actively trying to decrease actor salaries, emphasizing the power of the character brand over star power. While this may seem like sound business from a corporate perspective, it fosters an environment of resentment and proves that, for Disney, the real superpower has always been financial leverage. The tensions brewing between Marvel's stars and the studio machine cannot be fully understood without examining the man at the top of the corporate ladder, Bob Iger, returning as Disney's CEO in late 2022. Iger has long been hailed as a visionary for his aggressive acquisition strategy that brought Pixar, Marvel, and Lucasfilm under one roof, creating an entertainment juggernaut. However, his leadership, particularly in recent years, has exposed a profound and growing disconnect between the executive suite and the creative talent that fuels the Disney empire. Through a series of dismissive public comments and a transparently profit-driven content strategy, Iger has cultivated what can only be described as an adversarial relationship with his own workforce. making it clear that in his view, the artists, writers, and actors are not partners, but components in a global business machine. This Iger doctrine was laid bare for the world to see during the historic 2023 Hollywood writers and actors strikes, as creatives took to the picket lines to fight for fair wages, protection from AI, and a share of streaming profits. Iger gave an interview from a billionaire's summer camp that was breathtakingly out of touch. He described the union's demands as just not realistic and called the strikes very disturbing, lamenting that it was the worst time in the world to add to that disruption for the thousands of workers struggling to make rent while Disney posted billions in profits. These words were not just dismissive, they were a declaration of war. The backlash from Marvel's own talent was swift and fierce. Tatiana Maslany, star of She-Hulk, attorney at law, didn't mince words, calling Iger completely out of touch and highlighting the vast wealth disparity between the executives and the workers who make his shows. Sean Gunn, a veteran of the Guardians of the Galaxy films, stood on the picket line and directly addressed Iger's hypocrisy. "Bob Iger makes 400 times what his lowest worker is," Gunn stated. "And I think that's a G-damn shame, Bob." Even rising stars felt emboldened to push back. When asked about the disappointing box office performance of the Marvels, star Imani Vellani deftly deflected accountability away from the creative team and placed it squarely on the CEO's shoulders, saying, simply, "That's for Bob Iger." It was a subtle but powerful act of defiance, indicating that the talent was no longer willing to be the scapegoat for corporate missteps. Iger's comments during the strike were not an isolated gaffe but a window into his overarching philosophy on content. In late 2023, as the MCU faced criticism for a string of lackluster projects, Iger diagnosed the problem. The issue, he suggested, wasn't a decline in quality or overworked VFX artists. It was that the stories had too much focus on messages. This thinly veiled critique was widely interpreted as a jab at the studio's more diverse and progressive storylines from Ms. Marvel to Eternals. He later announced a new strategy for the MCU, a retreat to the familiar, focusing on larger MCU franchises. This plan to save the superhero universe by doubling down on established properties was seen by many as a move toward creative cowardice, prioritizing safe, predictable profits over the innovative and inclusive storytelling that many fans and creators had championed. This corporate doctrine provides the crucial context for the specific disputes with actors. When Jeremy Renner talks about Disney's penny pinchers, he is describing the ground-level enforcers of a top-down mandate. The decision to offer a founding Avenger half his salary isn't made in a vacuum. It's the logical outcome of a corporate culture, championed by Iger, that seeks to minimize the leverage and cost of individual talent. The goal is to make the brand, be it Marvel, Star Wars, or Disney itself, the star, rendering the human actors who embody the characters as interchangeable and, ultimately, less powerful. This philosophy explains the push for lower salaries in Phase 4, the willingness to replace actors like Terrence Howard, and the aggressive stance against Scarlett Johansson. The conflict, therefore, runs deeper than just money. It's a fundamental clash of values. On one side are the artists, who see themselves as collaborators in a creative enterprise and believe their contributions should be respected and fairly compensated. On the other is a CEO who, by his own words and actions, appears to view talent as an expensive and often disruptive line item on a balance sheet. The Iger doctrine has transformed the relationship between the studio and its stars from a symbiotic partnership into a cold, transactional arrangement. And as the creative output of the MCU has faltered, many are beginning to wonder if the CEO's obsession with control and cost-cutting has finally begun to poison the very magic he sought to monetize. Beyond the battles over scripts and salaries, a more insidious conflict has been raging within the Marvel machine, a fight for the very soul and identity of its actors. Playing a superhero for a decade is a physically and mentally grueling endeavor. But for many MCU stars, the toll has been magnified by a studio culture that demands total control over their bodies, their careers, and even their personal lives. This has fostered a disposable hero complex where actors, no matter how iconic or beloved, are made to feel that they are merely temporary custodians of an intellectual property owned by Disney. The result is a landscape of burnout, anxiety, and a profound sense of unraveling identity, as the line between the actor and the character is deliberately blurred and then erased by the studio. Chris Hemsworth's journey as Thor serves as a powerful case study in this creeping loss of self. While he has often been portrayed as the loyal company man, his recent reflections reveal a deep-seated fatigue with the suffocating constraints of the role. The most telling anecdote emerged from his work on the National Geographic series Limitless. While attempting a personal and demanding physical challenge for the show, Marvel executives reportedly intervened, telling him to stop because his potential body transformation could jeopardize the continuity of Thor's physique. This wasn't a request, it was a mandate. It sent a clear message: Hemsworth's body did not fully belong to him. It was an asset, a piece of the Thor brand that Marvel had the right to manage and protect. Even outside of its own productions, the actor was, in essence, a living, breathing action figure, expected to remain in mint condition. That this physical control is coupled with a palpable sense of psychological burnout. After more than 10 years of wielding the hammer, Hemsworth has spoken openly about his identity, becoming entangled with the God of Thunder. This crisis was amplified by the public revelation of his high genetic risk for Alzheimer's, a deeply personal health issue that was revealed within a Disney-produced show. As he confronted his own mortality, his future in the MCU became shrouded in doubt that seemed to be shared by the studio. His now famous quote, "I don't know if I'm even invited back," was not the confident statement of a bankable star. It was the vulnerable admission of a man who had dedicated a decade of his life to a character, only to be met with a wall of corporate indifference. The message was clear. His loyalty and sacrifice did not guarantee him a future. He too could be disposed of. This feeling of being disposable is a thread woven throughout the MCU. It's why the studio felt comfortable sidelining Robert Downey Jr. from awards campaigns after his career-defining performance in Endgame 2. Honor the man would be to acknowledge his irreplaceable power. It's why many interpret Chris Evans' departure from the role of Captain America not just as a perfect narrative conclusion, but as a strategic escape before the studio's grip tightened any further. Other actors have found themselves in a state of professional limbo, a tool Marvel uses to maintain leverage. Brie Larson, intended to be a leader of the next phase of the MCU, gave a devastatingly honest and uncertain response at a D23 event when asked about her future as Captain Marvel, a reflection of how her role had been downplayed and her passion seemingly muted by the studio. After his critically acclaimed turn in Moon Knight, Oscar Isaac was left with no clear contract path forward. Only options, a classic studio strategy that keeps talent on the hook without offering any real commitment. This systematic devaluing of individual actors has created an environment where even the most promising stars are quickly repositioned if they become inconvenient. After facing controversy for her off-screen comments, Letitia Wright, once hailed as the clear heir to the Black Panther mantle, was subtly repositioned as just one of many Wakandan voices rather than the singular face of the franchise. The illusion of choice at its most cynical. Tell the audience the mantle is being passed, but leave enough ambiguity to retract it if the actor steps out of line. The message to the entire roster is that they are interchangeable parts in a machine that is bigger and more important than any one of them. The golden handcuffs are real, the paycheck is substantial, but the price is your autonomy. The heroes on screen may be fighting for the fate of the universe, but the actors playing them are engaged in a more personal struggle, a fight to hold onto some part of themselves. They are rented, recorded, and molded to fit a formula. And when they no longer serve their purpose, whether they become too expensive, too outspoken, or simply too tired, the system is designed to replace them. The tragic irony is that the MCU franchise, built on stories of identity and self-discovery, is powered by a machine that systematically strips its own talent of theirs. The relentless pursuit of control that has defined Disney's management of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, from secret scripts and body mandates to financial hardball, is heading toward its terrifying and logical conclusion: the elimination of the human element altogether. The looming specter of artificial intelligence is no longer science fiction, it is an active and developing strategy within Hollywood. For a studio obsessed with predictability, cost efficiency, and absolute power, the promise of AI is the ultimate prize. A world where actors can be digitally created, eternally compliant, and endlessly recyclable. This is the final frontier of corporate control, and it threatens to transform the MCU from a universe of human stories into a soulless simulation. The foundations for this synthetic future have been quietly laid for years. Every major Marvel star has been subjected to extensive full-body 3D scans. Initially, this was presented as a necessary tool for visual effects to create seamless CGI action sequences or to de-age characters, as seen with Samuel L. Jackson in Captain Marvel. However, the ownership of these incredibly detailed digital likenesses lies not with the actors, but with the studio. These scans have become a massive data library, a treasure trove of biometric information that is now the raw material for training sophisticated AI models. The ghost in the machine is no longer a metaphor. It's a dataset waiting to be animated. This fear became a central battleground of the 2023 actors' strike. SAG-AFTRA fought fiercely for protections against the unauthorized use of AI to replicate their performances. Their concern was based on credible threats. Insiders and VFX artists have whispered about Marvel's experiments for years. A source from the Secret Invasion production team told Variety that AI tools were explored to fill in narrative gaps using existing footage. More alarmingly, industry leaks revealed that Disney had been quietly testing AI-generated trailer voices, simulating iconic actors for promotional content. The reported verdict? Most viewers couldn't tell the difference. This proves that technology is rapidly approaching a point where a digital replica is indistinguishable from the real thing. At least, to the casual observer. Consider the implications. Why negotiate with Chris Hemsworth and his agents when a digital Thor, forever in his prime, can be generated from 15 years of performance data? Why worry about Chris Evans' reluctance to return as Captain America when Disney owns his likeness and can resurrect him in flashbacks, multiverse cameos, or entirely new projects without him ever stepping on set? This isn't just about replacing background actors, a practice studios have already pushed for. This is about creating digital doubles of A-list stars, effectively giving the studio the power to make them act forever, with or without their consent. The only recourse an actor might have, as demonstrated by James Earl Jones signing over the rights to his Darth Vader voice, is to preemptively cede control in the hope of guiding the process. For the rest, their digital ghosts could be forced to perform for eternity. This synthetic replacement strategy is the ultimate solution to all of the studio's talent problems. An AI actor doesn't have an ego. It doesn't demand a higher salary, sue for breach of contract, get involved in public scandals, or go on strike for unrealistic demands. It is a perfectly controllable, eternally available, and cost-effective asset. The entire business model, built on managing difficult human beings, could be streamlined into a simple act of digital creation. The reboot of the MCU might not involve recasting actors. It might involve re-rendering them. Many fans are already feeling the chilling effects of this shift toward a more synthetic, algorithm-driven product. Recent films like Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, and series like Secret Invasion have been criticized for feeling lifeless, detached, and visually soulless. This may be the direct result of a creative process that increasingly prioritizes CGI spectacle and formulaic plotting over genuine human emotion. When you remove the risk, spontaneity, and authenticity that human actors bring, you are left with a hollow product. The tremor in Iron Man's hand, the weary determination in Steve Rogers' eyes, the selfless sacrifice in Natasha Romanoff's leap. These moments came from people, not pixels. They were born from the collaboration between writers, directors, and actors who felt something real. This is the final and most profound lie sold to the audience. We are told that the multiverse, reboots, and variants are exciting plot devices that open up infinite storytelling possibilities. In reality, they are also legal shields and corporate loopholes. They create a narrative framework where any character can be killed, resurrected, or replaced with a younger, cheaper, or entirely digital version, all under the guise of creative choice. But the choice is no longer ours. We are being conditioned to accept replacement as entertainment, to cheer for digital nostalgia, crafted from contracts, not care. The ultimate villain of the Marvel Cinematic Universe isn't a purple titan or a conqueror from the future. It's the cold, calculating predictability of a corporate machine that is actively working to erase the very humanity that made us believe in heroes in the first place.